TUGS, Treasure Hunt. Written by Fiona Hardwick and based on the television series created by David Mitton and Robert D. Cardona. Read by Ellis Pagan and Chris Dale. The tugboat, for its size, is the most powerful craft afloat. And the Star Tugs are the power behind the docks and waterways that make up the big city port. This is TUGS. In the days of corruption and bad business ethics which made up the 1920s, our rival, Captain Zero, was often looking for devious ways to make what he believed was an honest living. The day that I'm remembering began with his loud voice being full of greedy delight as I heard him announce to his Z-Stacks,
"There's another big job tonight, lads. Some pals of mine are sending up a cargo ship to be unloaded. And very special cargo it is too. Let's call it treasure, shall we? It's arriving at midnight for extra security, and it must be offloaded immediately. Zoran, you'll be in charge as usual. No mistakes, or there'll be trouble."
The Z-Stacks looked at each other knowingly. Captain Zero's less than honest friends quite often gave them jobs like this. Zip and Zug sighed wearily, but Zoran told them off sharply.
"Come on, you lazy sardine cans. Don't think it's a holiday until that ship arrives tonight."
Somehow, Zoran was better at giving orders than doing them himself. This morning, however, he had something he wanted to do in person. The night before, a small cargo ship had got into trouble in the estuary, and it had crashed on the dangerous Demder rocks. By now, it would only be fit for salvage. First, he collected the wreck and brought it back to the harbour. Then, he went upriver to see Burke and Blair, the scrap dealers, at the breakers' yard. He had to be very careful around them. Last year, during the big heatwave, he had been infected by the tramper Nantucket, and even though he was out of quarantine, Burke and Blair were still waiting for a chance to buy him up cheap and sell him for scrap.
"Right, Zoran,"
Blair said as Zoran told him about the treasure ship.
"We'll be over tomorrow morning to collect her, won't we, Mr. Burke?"
"Oh yes, Mr. Blair."
At the end of the long day, the treasure ship arrived in the quay. The exhausted Z-Stacks worked all through the night, until, at last, the job was finished. All except for a few crates, which they put on a barge next to the quayside.
"We'll do those in the morning,"
said Zoran bossily.
"I've had enough of treasure for one night."
The next morning, rested and refueled, Zoran returned to the quayside. But to his horror, he saw that the remaining crates of treasure were no longer there, nor was the wrecked cargo ship he'd brought in from the estuary the night before. Zach was the only tug in sight.
"Zach, you dummy! Where have you put those crates that were on the barge? They belong to the treasure ship that came in last night." "But Burke and Blair picked up that wreck earlier and took the crates. Nobody told me about any treasure ship."
Zoran was furious. He rushed upriver to the breakers' yard where Burke and Blair showed him the barge. Even though he didn't actually recognize the crates, that didn't stop Zoran from grabbing them. After all, it had been very dark, and Zoran had been very tired when he and the other Z-Stacks were unloading them. When he got back to the harbour, Zoran began shoving the crates onto the quayside. Suddenly, one of them fell over and broke open. It wasn't the treasure at all, but some old stores they had put out for rubbish collection.
"I don't believe it,"
snarled Zoran.
"Where are those rotten crates? If Captain Zero finds out I've messed up this job, my name will be mud,"
he said. He had to organise a proper search, but the trouble was that the rest of the Z-Stacks were all busy that day. That was when, out of the corner of his eye, Zoran spotted 10 cents. 10 cents was feeling rather low. The Z-Stacks had been getting most of the big contracts that year, and he hated not being busy. So when he saw Zoran beckoning him,
Oi, 10 cents!
his heart sank.
This'll be more of his showing off, I suppose.
Sighed 10 cents as he went over.
10 cents, me old mate.
Said Zoran.
I'm in a bit of a fix. I wonder if you and your fancy stars can help me.
Zoran told 10 cents about the disappearing treasure crates.
What exactly is this treasure?
Asked 10 cents.
Don't ask me. It could be anything.
Zoran smirked. 10 cents frowned. Zoran had gotten into this mess because he was too careless. So why should the Star Tugs help him?
Well, alright, Zoran. But on one condition. Make sure that we get the contracts when you lot have got more work than you can handle. It's a deal.
But of course, Zoran didn't intend to keep his promise. So as not to arouse Captain Zero's suspicion, Zoran searched the Z-Stack side of the big city port, whilst the Star Tugs went to look everywhere else. First, 10 cents and Big Mac tried searching the Municipal Garbage Corporation, in case the crates had been taken there by mistake. But the owner told them that nothing had arrived there for 2 days. Then, they tried all the warehouses along the quay. It wasn't very easy, because Zoran couldn't really describe the treasure. Big City Port was full of crates, and they couldn't just start opening all of them, could they? Oh, this treasure hunt is too difficult, moaned Warrior. There aren't any clues.
Oh, no luck, Zoran.
Said 10 cents later.
Are you sure you can't remember what the crates looked like? If I could, I'd tell you, you idiot. Oh, it was the same with Burke and Blair this morning. All I could say was that they were the crates on the barge next to the wreck. Burke and Blair? Oh, so that's who's behind it!
Cried 10 cents.
Don't you see? They probably took your rubbish and the treasure this morning. When you arrived and couldn't remember what you'd lost, they only gave you the old stores back. Here, I think it's time we paid those two a visit. Let's see if we can jog your memory.
10 cents told Big Mac to go upriver to see Burke and Blair. When he arrived, he asked some more questions about the lost crates. The 2 scrap dealers looked worried, but then remembered they had got them after all.
In fact, we were just going to tell Captain Zero about it, weren't we, Mr. Burke?
We were indeed, Mr. Blair. Well, you won't need to now, will you? I'll just take these, thanks.
Big Mac went back to Big City Port and gave the crates to Zoran, who had been waiting rather impatiently for them. And as much as he hated to admit it, the Star Tugs had got him out of trouble.
Well, thanks, boys,
said Zoran.
Of course, I'd realised they must be with Burke and Blair myself, but I thought I'd let you take credit for the detective work, seeing as you're having a difficult time right now, eh?
10 cents opened his mouth to shout at Zoran, but was interrupted by Captain Zero's angry voice.
Zoran, come here! Some of that, treasure is missing! Don't tell me you've lost it, you stupid tug!
It seemed that Captain Zero had found out after all. Zoran was going to have to do some very fast talking this time.
Coming right away, Captain Zero. I can explain everything. Yeah, that'll teach him to be so high and mighty,
said 10 cents. He grinned at the others. Later that day, Zoran came over looking very surly. He scowled as he said,
Our, wonderful captain seems to think we need some help with 1 or 2 unimportant jobs. Any of you fellas free? So, you're keeping your promise, Zoran,
said 10 cents. Zoran didn't say anything, he just scowled even further. Zoran may have been a tug of very little morals, but if there was one thing he learned after that day, it was this. One boat's trash is his captain's treasure.